my brain and other people's brains and other people's languages. And so oftentimes he will pull to put the information together. So the 3 degrees from the 3 inches I can understand because he didn't have degrees and inches in his time. It was different. So then came that earthquake. He said at New Year's, I believe this year, there will be a coastal event that will affect the coastlines of the world. The coastal event would be devastating. And so many people rush to it. Now, he doesn't always tell us exactly what it is. What he tells us is that it's coming. And to the audience, if there was someone that was sitting in that audience in front of him that was living in an area to which he was talking about, he would move them out of the area. He would cause them to leave in a timely event the area that they were in. So he doesn't always say it's this or it's that. And other times he's extremely specific because of the people who are hearing him that have asked the question, that want to know, are going to be affected by that. So he talked about the coastline event and that more volcanoes would be going off, some unusual ones, actually. So then we saw the volcano in Iceland and the Big Mama, who he says is going to blow sometime this year, and it will bring nuclear winter to Europe. And he had talked about that long time ago, about that cause and effect. And it's sort of like we understand, to the Mama volcano that sits on Iceland is massive. And the one that went off was a junior volcano, and we saw the economic catastrophe as well as the inconvenience of people in Europe by having ash in the atmosphere. The one that's coming is devastating. And
it's on record. It usually follows the first one. It has a history of doing that. The little guy goes off, and then the big one comes right behind it.
Well,
I think is it Katla?
Yeah. No. Well, it's a longer name than Katla.
Oh yeah.
But that's coming. Now I want to come to. Now we have volcanoes going off everywhere. 2 years ago in Australia, was it 2 years ago? Or maybe it was, maybe 2 years ago or a year ago. In Australia, he had a campaign event there. And he had a lot of people from the Southern Pacific area, New Zealand, the islands, Australia, Malaysia, that were there. And he was talking about the effects of what was coming in terms of how it would affect their region. He said something, it was a little puzzling. And you can check this out. You can go today and check this out. He said there would be an earthquake in New Zealand, and that the earthquake would move it closer to Australia, and that in times ahead, New Zealand would join Australia as a complete continent. And 2 weeks after that, 2 weeks to 3 weeks after that, there was an earthquake in New Zealand that did a strange thing. It actually moved the island closer to Australia, just like you said. And he's saying that because there are immediate events that are happening that are going to affect those people, but these are like runners. These are signs, like the old folk would say. This is a sign about there are certain things that you need to do and that you need to take care of.
Have you heard of the landmass that's rising off the coast of Australia? I think it's 13 feet per day, and this huge landmass is starting to rise up out there, and people are calling it ancient Lemuria rising.
Ancient Lemuria is not down there. Ancient Lemuria was more in the northern latitudes. That I know about. What is rising is going to be a massive continent. When he talks about New Zealand coming into Australia, you could be talking about a whole land bridge starting to emerge. And it's not Atlantis either, because the main continent of Atlantis is Antarctica. And Antarctica once existed in what we call the Atlantic region, up above where the South American and African continents would have actually come together. There was this whole place that took up aspects in the Atlantic Ocean that a long time ago, that this continent actually just fell to where it's at today. And the Ramesses is a magnificent continent. And for years, I mean decades, 33 years, he's talked about the mountains of Antarctica and the massive cities that are still intact and frozen underwater. And we know that there was an ancient map discovered that was painted on a gazelle hide that was actually a map seen from the air that actually mapped the coastlines of South America all the way down to Antarctica, and that with its ports and its rivers and all of that. So at one time we know, where there's ancient aliens, that from above, that this continent was not under ice and that it was actually accessible. And this is an ancient map. I don't have the information, but I'm sure that if you do some research, you can find it. So
I'm aware of that map. I don't want to say it because I'll probably mispronounce it, but I am aware of that map.
So Ram, for 33 years, talked about Atlantis just before, when these continents started spreading, that this was a continent, it was like on roller coaster wheels, that actually moved out of the Atlantic and literally just fell where it's at, and that as the continents of Africa and South America continent moved apart, this continent just rolled on down. And so we're in a heady region that is going to be very durable in times coming, even if the Earth rotates half a marble. That's going to rotate up the southern latitudes, including Antarctica, to a more northerly or equatorial position. So you're going to see the old Atlantis rising again, which is actually the ice coming off of it and being revealed. And only here recently was using satellite technology, radar, sophisticated technology. They were able to see through the ice and see these extraordinary mountains that look like the Alps, with valleys and seemingly structures around that was buried underneath the ice.
Yeah, that's the Peary-Reese map.
There you go. That's right. That's one on the hide.
Yeah, ancient map of Antarctica.
So now we come today to following this thread forward. We see the prudence of buying gold, 30 years ago. We see the prudence of having one's own land paid for, given the mortgage market in the country and what happened with derivatives and packaging and all of that, and people losing their homes. And we see the value of sovereignty. We see the value of having your own water as it becomes the most valuable asset. As states, if you don't own your own water rights, they are going to, those water rights automatically go to the state Department of Ecology. So, all of your viewers, if they own land, should find out if they are the water right holders of their own land, which is really important to do. And we see the wisdom of the gold. We see the wisdom of being sovereign, owning your little tiny piece of land, and becoming sovereign. We see that in an in an economy where people are losing their jobs, have lost their jobs, are losing their homes, are losing a way of life. That had that been their lives been modified starting 30 years ago, and we bring that forward, we would see people that actually were sovereign, as many of your listeners are going to be.